Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are here in Throne and Liberty. And I am making this video as a response to the video that I made about Throne and Liberty having the worst dungeons of any and all MMOs. So, let's talk about it a little bit. Let's recap on that video. We're going to just go into our character selection. We're going to get this magnificent, this beautiful, white, shiny knight. Oh, just come save me. I am a princess in distress and I need you. Oh my god, I need you. So, nonetheless, as we get in here, I'm going to be doing some things. The structures of these dungeons are against the player tenfold. There's very little to no training involved of getting the player ready for the dungeon. Meaning that the mini-bosses, in most instances, not all of them, but most instances, the mini-bosses do not have the main boss mechanics. And so you learn nothing about what mechanics are in store for you. You learn nothing about what that boss is capable of doing, because that's your chance. That's how you set up a dungeon. You set it up by putting in mechanics pre-boss, so through your mini-bosses, or even some of the dungeon trash can teach the player, like, oh, well, this dark circle here, it seems to follow people around, and that if people stand in it, it doesn't do any damage. And so by the time that you get to the end boss, well, guess what? You know that that circle, although it's bigger, well, it can hold the entire party, and everyone understands if we just stand in it, we shouldn't receive any damage. These types of things like this should be in the dungeon, but they are not in most of the dungeons in Throne and Liberty. And funnily enough, the dungeons that they do introduce these mechanics into, or at least introducing somewhat of a mechanic to what the boss is going to do, are in the more difficult endgame bosses. That doesn't make much sense to me. You should actually have these mechanics in your earliest dungeons. These mechanics for these bosses are not trained. That's the first mistake of how these dungeons are crap. The next mistake is that through the class tier systems of course, having a tank, a DPS, and a healer, you cannot realize the full functionality of these classes in this game. Mostly the healer itself is probably one of the most difficult to master in the game. And the reason why I say this is because you have a lot of stress put on you as a healer to ensure the complete survivability of the party at all times. And the reason why this is this way is because there is no revive mechanic in Throne and Liberty. Doesn't exist. You don't unlock it at any point in time. It's not like you hit level 50 and you're able to actually revive players and continue the fight. So the healer is at a huge disadvantage as far as likability, not only by the player of the healer itself, but also by the community, because if people die, it's of one of two things. It's because the healer wasn't on the ball, or they're a complete nincompoop and they don't understand the mechanics of the boss. And unfortunately, how this goes is into the third reason why these dungeons are shit, which of course is related to the healer not being able to revive. Your success rate, if you start losing players, your success percentage goes down dramatically. And in fact, it's like a tier system. The first player that you lose, if they are DPS, your success rate goes down by 15%. It's not a huge amount, but it is enough because, well, you're now going to take longer time beating the boss, and the longer that you are in this dungeon, the more mistakes you are going to make. If you lose 2 people, again, keeping to the trend that it is a DPS that lost their life, your success goes from a negative 15%, so losing 15%, to 45%. That's huge. If you lose 2 DPS, most parties just want to wipe, because losing that much DPS, you're going to be at this boss forever. And eventually, it's going to simply just result in even more chances of making mistakes, and you're relying on people who might not even have, like, maybe the better DPS died, so the one that was actually doing some hench work on the boss, well, guess what? Well, they're gone now. You can't bring them back, and they're gone. So, yeah, if you lose 2 DPS, your chance of success goes down by 45%. So you have a 55% rate of success with your remaining 4 individuals. However, there is a 100% failure rate if you lose the healer, because there are no self-revives in the game. You can't self-revive at all. It's done. It's over with. If the healer dies, you're all dead. End of story. The healer can't self-resurrect. None of that. It just can't happen. If the tank dies, it is also a wipe, because more of the mechanics in this game, you have to have the tank soak this stupid damage that this boss is dealing. Sometimes a healer, if they are really good and very, powered, I would say like probably 4,000 combat powered, then sure, maybe you could possibly do some things without a tank, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say 99% of the time, you lose the tank, you're going to wipe. So if you lose 2 DPS, you wipe. If you lose a tank, you wipe. If you lose the healer, you wipe. It is hardcore. It is absolutely hardcore. And this trend is set from the very first dungeon all the way into the higher tier dungeons. But here's the funny caveat to all this, and to the disclaimer that I made in the previous video to the one that I make now. When we did these dungeons, when this game first released, it was stupid freaking hard. It was so freaking hard to do these dungeons because there wasn't any guides on it. No one was telling you what to do, and you had to rely on just trial and error. And it was exhausting to do these dungeons. Now, it's not so bad. Well, why do I say this? Why do I say that the dungeons have actually grown up or are tolerable at this stage in Throne and Liberty's life? Well, a couple of things. One, the player base has matured. And when I say matured, it's not the people, because they're immature. What I'm actually saying is that the power creep in this game, the amount of gear people have seized by this point in time, and that the player base is a mature player base, meaning that most players have reached the end game. There's not a whole lot of actual new players in the game, and so therefore, going through these older dungeons as a quote-unquote new player, or your second alt character, or whatever the case would be, incredibly trivial. The amount of DPS, the amount of damage that these players are doing can run you through these dungeons, and it's trivial. It's just like, oh wow, I just went through this dungeon. I don't know why people are complaining that these dungeons are so bad. The beginning dungeons of the game, so your level 20, level 30, level 40, they're incredibly trivial. And not only is it because if you grab someone, such as if you were running an alt character and you have a guild, and you happen to have a guild mate just join you into the dungeon, they're fucking, level CP of like 4,000 or something like that. Essentially, they could solo you through the dungeon. No problem whatsoever. The first star, level 50 dungeons, can be done also very simply. The, again, amount of incredible damage that players are able to produce now makes 1-star level 50 dungeons trivial for the most part, and even then, like, you can make mistakes in these and people really don't care because, oh, we lost a DPS, oh, we lost the healer, oh, we lost the tank. Who cares, because we're doing so much DPS, we're going to smack this boss around and we're going to be done like 10 seconds anyways. So even the level 50 stuff is almost to the point of being absolutely trivial. The 2-star level 50 dungeon, so the hardest content that currently exists, is also almost to the point where it's starting to get a little easier. Now, granted, what kind of mistakes we can make factor and get away with it factor is obviously much smaller in the 2-star level 50 dungeons compared to the rest. Level 20, level 30, and level 40, not only do you have your veteran players that can just pull you through if you're trying to run an alt character or something like that, and you have a guild member or just a friend that wants to help you out or can help you out, very trivial. The next thing is that because of the power creep in the game, the bots run the level 20 dungeon over and over and over again, and you can get through the level 20 dungeon with the help of bots. And bots are very prevalent in the level 20 dungeon. You'll see, someone with the name of QWX24577LL, and you're like, yeah, that's a bot. But it doesn't matter because, again, that power creep that everybody has now, completely easy to get through the level 20 dungeon. You will not see bots on the level 30 or 40 dungeon because there are mechanics that must require interactions in order for it to be completed. And so until they make a botting program that can do the interactions, which we're probably not far off from that, you're not going to see bots except for in the level 20 dungeon. The dungeons are manageable now. They are easy now. Does that make them better? Absolutely not. And we're going to go into that even now that when I say that the dungeons are quote unquote fixed, we're going to go into these dungeons and show you just how toxic this community is with making sure that these dungeons are done, and they're done right, and they're done the first freaking time. So let's get into the first dungeon. So we're going to get into the first dungeon here. And of course I did the randomizer, so I'm not sure where I'm going to end up. But we are in the Void Wastes. This dungeon is the third iteration. Or no, this is the second iteration. My bad. So the first version of this is introduced as a 1-star level 50 dungeon. And then we have the 2-star version of it here. This dungeon plays, as far as the first part of this dungeon plays exactly as the first one, where you just run through all of these enemies, and you get to certain checkpoints. I like to call them checkpoints, where you have to beat mobs or you have to beat a mini-boss in order to continue forward. So that being said, and then of course I think this is an MMO thing, right? We all, especially when we get to the point of endgame, to the point to where we are just wanting to farm content, we're ready to farm our gear. Made a little mistake there, went into that nasty little zone, which I guess this is a good little bridge that we can talk about. So you see all this yellow stuff, right, that's glowing on the ground, and I just discovered, through a mistake that I made, that if I touch that stuff, I get stunned. This is what I was talking about, like these high-level dungeons, I get to learn that shit right there, I probably shouldn't step in it. And so when we get to a boss, or the boss, then if it introduces this, or any mini-boss that introduces this, then I know that I cannot step or touch on that. And I also learned that I cannot dash through it either. It's going to catch you no matter what. But this is learned going through the dungeon. This is very smart dungeon engineering. This is good training for the players. We all know to avoid it and get the fuck around it. But as I was saying, so as MMO players who want to farm and get through content as fast as possible, we find the route of least resistance. And if it means running past a ton of mobs and then just sprinting to the mini boss or these checkpoints where you have to kill the mobs in order to continue forward, that's what's going to happen, and that's what's happening here. So I'm just going to skip ahead. We're getting to the point of getting to the last boss, if you will. So there's a few mechanics here, which funnily enough, this mini boss, that little lightning bolt mechanic is only specific to this mini boss. That mini boss mechanic is not teaching you what is about to come with the main boss. And to me, that's a huge oversight. If you're going to introduce any mechanics in the dungeon, they need to be uniform. Yes, I 100% agree, and it makes it, I guess, fun when mini bosses and other things have their own unique mechanics. But if it's a major mechanic, which that mini boss was doing, I definitely feel like that should be implemented. So we're getting into the final boss. I'm going to go ahead and zoom my camera out a little bit here so that way we can see everything that's going on. People are taking their places. Now I'm pretending, I am pretending at this point that I've never ran this dungeon. I want you to know and see what happens when you are a noob, you've never done this dungeon before, and you didn't look at a guide. There was no training on how this mechanic works, and so now we are watching me as a tank, so a very important role for this boss fight, not doing this boss fight as I should be. And you will see through the messaging on these players, they are just screaming at me like, what the fuck? Why? What is this tank doing? Well, here's the thing. Like I showed, none of so you see, we just have this like stuff on the ground. Well, I know, and I shouldn't touch that, right? And you're also trained in the previous 1-star dungeon that you shouldn't touch this either. And so this should be common knowledge at this point in time that you don't touch this. Dodging the Fury attack, the diamond Fury attack, you got to move to dodge that in order to dodge it successfully. So these things you should already know. However, these purple laser beam things, as you can see, people are now saying the tank. What's the tank doing? But these purple laser beam things, that didn't exist in any of the mini bosses. I have no idea what the hell those do. I don't understand. I mean, I know the breath mechanic because the 1-star version of this dungeon, there is a breath mechanic, but I've never seen it yellow, and I don't know what's happening. The grids aren't the same as what the last 1-star boss version of this was. And so I'm just assuming, well, maybe I just need to keep the aggro on and we're good. Obviously, that's not what I should be doing. And the player base is incredibly not happy with me. They are absolutely not happy with me and how I am doing things. Obviously, I died because I didn't do the mechanic right. I put in the chat that I'm sorry, this is like my first time. You'll see my message pop up here shortly. So I am actually voiceovering this. I'm not doing this in game. Yeah, this is first time here. They're not very happy about that because the way that Throne and Liberty has structured these dungeons, the way that Throne and Liberty has essentially created this player base that if you are not doing things the right way the first time, this is what happens to you. You get kicked. I just got kicked out of the dungeon, and yeah, that's what's going to happen to you if you do not know how to do these mechanics in any of these dungeons, especially the 2-star dungeons. No one has time for that. And because no one has time for that, because as I had explained before, that the healer, if they die, you wipe. And if the tank dies, you wipe. If everybody, and if 2 DBS dies, you might as well wipe. You might be able to get through it, but you might as well wipe. Yeah. They're absolutely going to kick you because they don't have time for that No one has time to keep wiping and wiping and wiping and trying to train you on how to do the dungeon. They expected you to already know this information. They expected you to already have these mechanics down. Like, it boggles someone's mind that this is your first time playing this dungeon. How is this your first time playing this dungeon? No one wants to explain the mechanics to you. No one wants to go through and type out all the stuff. It's exhausting, it's stupid, and it creates a toxic environment. And so are the players to blame? Absolutely not. It is the game mechanic. It is the game developed. These dungeons are so toxic that if you as a player do not know what you're doing, you are going to get kicked in a heartbeat. And it's demoralizing. It really is, because now you're just like, well, it makes you not want to do dungeons again. It really does. And, well, like I said, and why the Throne and Liberty player base has went down in the toilet, it's because the PvE content is so difficult that, and we're just talking about dungeons. We're not talking about the events. We're not talking about forced PvP content. None of that stuff. We're just talking about dungeons, which, to my personal opinion, is a core mechanic of any MMO. You got to have dungeons. And if your dungeons aren't right, your game isn't right. And so when you as a player are forced to know what you're doing, you can't make mistakes. You cannot make mistakes. And that you are not afforded an opportunity to learn. You're not afforded an opportunity to be able to drive on from those mistakes. You don't want to do this shit again. You don't want to touch it with a 50-foot pole. You don't want to even look at it. You don't want to have to do anything with it. You don't want to deal with the anger and frustration of not only you yourself failing constantly, but people absolutely just turning you even further down by saying, like, what the hell, you piece of shit, essentially. Like, how do you not know the mechanics? How do you not know? Well, like I said, they're not trained. Those purple laser beams, they weren't a part of any mini-boss. And this is a brand new mechanic to this boss. Just like most of the rest of what this boss does, it's completely different than the 1-star version of it. And so there's really not much, if anything, that carries over from the 1-star boss to this 2-star boss. And you even have to be more specific about how you play it. And so the next time we get into this, because apparently a lot of people need the Void Wastes completed here, but we're going to get into another randomized dungeon, and we're going to see what happens when you start knowing your shit. So we are queuing up for the second time. Good old beautiful 2-star roll as a tank. Luckily, you pretty much, it's like instantaneous, because most of the time, tanks and healers, of course, and this goes with any MMO, they have a lot of priority because there's only one of you that's required, and so you get into dungeons pretty quick. So yeah, we're not going to go too crazy. We obviously ran through this before. Everyone knows the drill. Just get through this as fast as possible and get to the boss. So let's skip to the boss. Alright, we're back again. Guess who's back? Anyways, so we're here at the boss again. But now I'm going to be playing as a competent player. I've read the guide. I know what I'm doing. I know how to treat these laser beams. I have to stand in the laser beam, but I cannot get 30 stacks of the laser beam, and the boss can't get 30 stacks of the laser beam. And, I have to get the golden breath and make sure that the breath touches the 2 orbs that are on the sides of these horns that are on the outside of the arena, and I have to do my dodge mechanics, and then we have to have players switch out between the beams, because again, I can't receive 30 stacks, but as a tank I can actually handle it, so I can actually bounce between this, and then we can have some players to fuck around and do whatever, right? So but as we're finding out here, there's a few players that actually don't understand the mechanics. So I, as a tank, understand the mechanic, but now we are in the reverse of, it's not me that's the problem, it's other people. And we already see where the question marks come up, because there's a couple of people that are just running around. They're not taking the purple beam because we have to take turns. Again, this is not a learned mechanic. You don't know about this mechanic when you get to this boss. How do you learn this mechanic? You better look up a fucking guide. And that's wrong. you should not have to look up a guide when you are doing these things. Now, you see the breath here that he's doing. If you notice around the arena, this character is running in a very certain way because these horns on the outside, there's going to be 2 yellow orbs on the horns on the outside of the arena. And this boss's breath is to attack those horns, essentially, and destroy the orbs. So that way, the party doesn't get as much damage from the inevitable all-party attack that happens afterwards. So yes, we're fighting. We're making it by the skin of our teeth. Things are okay. We're going to continue to watch how this boss unfolds and talk to you more about what happens. Just doing basic dodge mechanics. Nothing crazy. I mean, you know, at this point in time, you could say that everybody's found their flow, but you also notice that there are a few people that are still not doing the beam mechanic quite right. Now, this individual that got picked is doing the breath mechanic just right. You see where the 2 orbs go away. And most people know to stay away from that breath. Doing the dodge mechanics, again, it's fairly simple at this point in time. You gotta, for those triangles or those diamond mechanics, you have to move and then dodge. So you can't stand still. You gotta move and dodge. So we can up those beams, doing my thing. All's well. Now, as the tank in this, usually, now the 1-star version of this, the tank, well, let's distract. That yellow, or sorry, that red big circle of doom there, that vortex, that player did it correctly. They had to go to the horn and put it as far away from everybody as possible because it sucks you in. Now, one player did die because I don't think they dodged the mechanic, and the healer, of course. Well, you can't revive that player, can you? So that player is dead. Another player, yeah. see how they said, really? Now that we've lost 2 people, our chances of getting this boss done are pretty much, you know, minus 45%. So we have a 55% chance of success at this point in time. We still have our healer, and of course I'm the tank, so we still have me. But the really comment was because that person died from the breath attack, and it's just one of those things where you should have known. You should have known. You can't stand near the breath. You got to be away from it. Or they were targeted for the breath, but didn't know how to do the breath mechanic and got, obviously, deleted. And again, our poor little healer over here, you know, can't bring these individuals back. This is such a huge overlook on this boss. Or just anything in this game, really. To not have an available revive for players is just a slap in the face. It's a tragedy. It's a slap in the face. I think it's incredibly immoral to just, and actually probably more so to say demoralizing, especially for the healer, because the healer in some way, shape, or form, this is me, of course, speaking, that it just sucks that I wasn't able to keep that person alive. Like, I did everything I freaking could. That guy made an honest mistake, or, you know, maybe just accident. Like, all these things are accidents that happen. And you can't fix the mistake. You can't fix the accident. And so now we're having less people to contribute to damage and everything else, and it's a pain in the ass. So now we got some guy who's running away. He doesn't know what to do. And look, he dies instantly. And the reason why I'm saying about this boss, that's not like the first boss or first version of this boss. The tank, which namely is me, and now I get to do the mechanics. So see, I make sure that golden orb and that golden orb are gone. I did the mechanic. Now I'm out a little ways. I shouldn't be that far away, but I was able to survive that little mistake because I have a huge health pool. But getting back to the point, the first version, the 1-star version of this boss, it targets with the breath the player with the most aggro. And so therefore, it should be the tank most of the time that gets targeted for the breath. And so DPS and healers have never had to worry about this boss's breath mechanic ever. Never had to worry about it. But now they do. And so now someone didn't bring that vortex to the horn back there, so that was a mistake on their end. But now there's just 3 of us. So technically our success chance at this point in time should be negative 85% or more. Like we should have just reset. But we have 1 DPS, 1 healer, and 1 tank. So we decided we spent all this time. I don't want to fucking reset this boss. It's a piece of shit. I don't want to go through this again. The boss is at fairly low health at this point in time. Let's just see how far we can get. And is this okay? Is this the type of mentality that you want? No, absolutely not. This should not be part of the player's mentality to just try and beat this boss with a handicap. We should not be trying to beat this boss right now with this handicap. But because we don't want to fucking do this stupid shit over again, because we don't want to have these players make these mistakes again, because no one has time to train you, I'm not going to tell you how this mechanic works. So we're just going to get through this damn thing. We're going to do our damnedest to make it work. This is not healthy. This is not how these dungeons are supposed to work. If the healer could revive, all 6 players should still be able to play the game. And that's another thing too. Look, if these 3 players are not playing the game anymore, do you think that's fun for them? Do you think it's fun just being a floating tombstone on the playing field, or just sitting by on the cliffside just watching this fight unfold? Do you think that's fun? The answer is no. It's boring. It's stupid. And if they could, I'm sure they would leave the party. But because that loot is so valuable, they're just stuck here in limbo. It's terrible. Terrible dungeon design. And it's so atrocious. And it's toxic. And so now we're forcing ourselves to get this boss killed. Just the 3 of us. And we'll fast forward here and show you the results of this battle. So here we are. We have been trudging through this boss. Just the 3 of us. Making this mechanic work. I mean, this is impressive. Any Throne and Liberty players will find this impressive. That a tank, a DPS, and a healer have managed to beat this fucking boss, just the 3 of us. I think we started at like 14 or something % health, right? Like, and I mean, even these vortexes, luckily I have such high health pool and stuff, I can handle some of this stuff that's happening. And the healer, to the healer's credit, great work, and boom, we're done. We're fucking done. We didn't have to reset, we didn't wipe, we got this fucking boss handled. Hench, baby. We were fucking hench on this thing. Good job, like... but, again, I reiterate, is this fun? No. No, it's not. It's not fun because the whole time we're just like, oh, I hope the hell we can beat it. I hope the hell we can beat it. Because here's another thing, too. If we got to that... Oh my god, if we got this boss down to like 1% health, and then one of us, it just would have taken one of us to make a mistake. The healer wasn't healing. I fucked up and didn't do the mechanic right, or the DPS died. All that time wasted. All of that time wasted. Absolutely terrible. Yeah. Like, it's sad. It's really sad to have an MMO like this. And now I'm actually whispering this player because he didn't like... I'm actually in the party with the character that he felt like I needed report. Again, like, the toxicity is crazy. This guy wants me to report another player because they failed so hard. There is no other MMO that I know of in all of the history of MMOs that I have played where someone is willing to report a player for being shit at doing mechanics, or made an honest mistake, or just maybe it was their first time there, and again, none of this stuff is trained on these bosses, and clearly, they weren't bothered to look up a guide beforehand, and so now players are willing to punish you in a heartbeat. They're either going to kick you, like you've seen with the first instance where I pretended I didn't know what I was doing. I got kicked immediately. As soon as I said it was my first time in this dungeon, boom, I'm gone. And who knows, maybe I did get reported. I don't know. That's it cracks me up. And then I got some guy telling me, hey, you need to make sure you report that player. Like, he's a piece of shit. He sucks. Like, you need to report him. And again, I don't blame the players for this. It's the fucking dungeons in this game that are just so atrocious that it created this player base. We already have enough toxicity in most MMOs and most video games in general. Throne and Liberty says, hold my beer, let me make this player base even more toxic. It's impressive. It truly is. And so now I'm going to show you the final dungeon that I've done, and just go through that. All right, are you all prepared for this one? Let me answer this for you. You're not. And neither was I. So, getting into that lovely matchmaking. It's beautiful. It's fast. It's great. Love it. And we find ourselves in Caramine Island, baby. Hell yeah. We get to verse the Goblin King. Hell yeah, baby. Let's go. So, obviously, we do the thing. We're going to get through this dungeon. Get through these trash mobs because they are checkpoints at this point. But I'm going to go through this dungeon piece by piece because this is a special dungeon. This one's a whole new level of special, and it comes in the form of the mini bosses in this dungeon. The mini bosses in this dungeon are so fucking annoying, and the mechanics that are at play are so stupid. I can't help but not talk about the mini bosses in this dungeon. So as a prelude, before we get to the first mini boss, you have to play a fucking memory game. Excuse me? Like, who made you say that I wanted to play a memory game? Why would I want to play a memory game? I want to focus on doing what I'm doing right now, which is doing some big dick damage or trying to grab aggro from all these monsters, which of course as a tank is nearly impossible to do, but it is what it is. But this first mini-boss that comes up relies on you having memory. And it's not easy. One, what you're about ready to see is it's a very limited time frame. You only get like really a few seconds to, and you better have your camera zoomed all the way out, mind you. You have a few seconds to look around this room and memorize where the colors are, and then you are given a color after they fade away. So they're gone now. The colors are gone. And you get a color after they're gone, and then you have to remember what fucking pillar had the color that you need to be at. So we're gonna summon this boss. All right, there's the colors. Now you need to start looking at it all around the room, and they're gone. Oh, there's my color. See what I'm saying? No one has the fucking time for this stupid fucking bullshit. And if you do this, look, watch how much my health goes away. Boom, I'm practically dead. I'm actually surprised I survived that. Usually that is a one-shot kill, because then the boss will start attacking you. Excuse me? What the fuck is this? I have to look around the arena. Now granted, this is the first time you've ran across this, right? We didn't get trained until we're here. So you just get this random color. You look at all the obelisks. Well, but you don't even get a color first. That's the problem. You should have gotten a color first. We should have all been assigned a color as soon as we summoned the boss. And then we were able to look around, and then that way we could have eye-to-eye contact with the obelisk that we needed to go to. Now I died there because there's also very small fury mechanics that this boss does, and since I have to have my camera zoomed out all the way, I didn't catch the fury mechanic that I was supposed to dodge, and I died. So this mini boss is infuriating. It's stupid. The mechanic is dumb. It's not done with any sort of intelligence behind it. It is fucking retarded. I don't want to play a memory game. And I don't want to play a rigged memory game where I have to look around the room as fast as I possibly can, because you're going to have the sigils up for like 2 fucking seconds. And then you give me a random color, and I have to remember in that 2 seconds where that fucking color is, so I can survive the mechanic. Stupid. Just call it out as it is. It's fucking stupid. And then you top that bullshit off with a tiny, tiny Fury mechanic that if you don't get it, well, then you die. And we were very happy that this DPS guy was able to, do it by himself. He was able, that power creep, I'm telling you, like I said, it's coming. The amount of people who are going to be reaching the 4,000 to 4,500 CP, and I made sure to put a little GG on there because I'm like, oh man, I'm so happy I do not have to do that fucking stupid mini boss again. The power creep on these DPS players is so huge that they can do what I would say is actually too much damage, but that's a good because it plays into the power fantasy of the game, and I have no problem with that. But I'm just saying, like, a DPS now can actually save you from some stupidity. We're now about ready to work on to the second mini-boss, of which, again, is equally just as stupid. Now, I thought I was smart here, and I got past all the bomb explosions, but apparently I was not. I don't know how. What the fuck? Like, okay, does not the red circle mean, like, if I'm in the red circle, I'm going to die? But I was outside of the red circle, so how the fuck did I die? See, even the mechanics that the game even has in place don't actually translate to what's going on or what's going to happen. That's another problem with mechanics in this game. And there's actually a lot of bosses, and even just elite mobs and stuff like that have Fury mechanics that you have to block, but the Fury attack has already happened before the Fury mechanic is actually up. Like, it's janky. So now we're to this boss. This guy lays bombs everywhere, and the goal is, of course, to push these bombs off the platform, because if they explode, they essentially kill you. And you of course you can only put the bomb, and you have to take it off in a very certain way, because these cement barriers on this platform, well, you can't push the bomb off. You can push it through that tiny crack, like what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to push it through the fucking crack. There, I got it. But now there's another bomb, and no one's touching it. No one's touching that other bomb. Look what happened. You have to kick these bombs off of this platform as fast as possible, or be situationally aware. And as you see, I'm the only person left because I know how this mechanic works. And then you also have to pay attention to the sky and make sure you hit that platform so you can get the hell out of the way. But luckily we did so much damage to this guy, I just have to hop onto the next platform and go from there. But here's the thing. Most of my other party members have not re-engaged with this boss. And oh, look at that. A fucking bug. Excuse me? I was on the fucking platform. I was on the platform. But because this game wants to be some quasi-platformer, and as you see, you also don't have an easy way to get back to this boss. So you see people constantly trying to fly there, get back to the platform, and get to this boss, because if we don't have somebody attacking this boss, guess what's going to happen? The boss is going to reset. And we're going to have to do this bullshit all over again. We were just fortunate that, that power creep, we were able to have enough players to continue attacking that boss and bring it down. But all too often, everyone dies, no one can make it back to the fucking platform, and the boss gets reset, and we have to do this stupid shit all over again. Stupid fucking engineering on these dungeons. These two mini bosses are probably some of the dumbest mini bosses I've ever had to verse in my entire life. They're just not fun. They're dumb. Their mechanics are dumb. And as you've seen, if you make one fucking mistake or not everybody is on the ball, guess what happens? Y'all die. And you gotta reset. Now, I thought, at this point in time, I thought after this player entered the arena, everybody was here. I miscounted. This was my bad. I made a mistake. So I started the fight because, as you can tell, can you tell who's the healer? I'll give you a minute. The answer is nobody in this arena is the healer. Now, obviously, Throne and Liberty players could possibly tell you, maybe, who the healer is. But unfortunately, even myself, I don't really pay attention too much because there isn't an icon. There's no icons telling you who the tank is, who the healer is, and who the DPS are. Now, maybe the DPS isn't such an important thing. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, I want to know. We should know who the tank is and who the healer are at all times. Now, obviously, we're killing ourselves because one of the players mentioned that, hey, dipshits, we don't have a healer in here. So we reset. Okay, again, that was my mistake. I didn't realize that the healer was not in the arena. And so, but now I'm double checking. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, everyone's here. let's do this now. Let's do this for real. And so now we're at the boss again. So let's go back to this whole thing of all those characters on the left side of the screen here. Who's the healer? Well, in order to find that information out, there are tiny little icons next to the picture of the weapons that they're using. And so I have to instinctively know who's there and look at the weapon icons and see the wand icon. The icon for the wand. Now, that guy was an idiot. He just stood there at his platform. And this is, of course, a little bit of foreshadowing about what's about ready to happen in this dungeon. So, one person has already wiped because they didn't know how to do the mechanic. There's a bunch of people fucking around in the mechanic area, which is dumb. They shouldn't be there. I, unfortunately, didn't dodge that correctly. I thought I dodged it, but apparently not. Dodging in this game is also very buggy and is also very specific. This boss's dash dodge is incredibly hard to counter, especially in this phase that we're in right now. So this dodge is fine. Like, everyone should be able to block that no problem. But in a second here, he's going to do his dash mechanic, and that's it. That's how much time you have, which is no time at all. The stun that this boss does, if you don't dodge it right, you're permanently stunned. Pretty much. And if he decides to dash back at you when he did his first dash, you're dead. It's insta-kill. The healer's not going to be able to help you. You're dead. So now we're down 2 people. So we got 4 players left, but we still have our healer, and of course I'm the tank. So maybe we can do this. Maybe we can trudge through. But as we're about ready to find out here, the dash mechanic, it gets everybody. They didn't dodge, came back, killed the guy. It's a terrible mechanic, and it requires people to spread out. It requires people to have fucking reflexes like a Jedi and understand that they need to just be so fast with their weapon or their dodge mechanic, because again, that dash mechanic, Fury, that dash Fury mechanic, dodge, is you have to move. You can't just simply hit your block button. And of course, at this point in time, I don't know how he didn't wipe there. That must be lag. But at this point in time, you know, when that comes up, you have to move your character and then push the dodge mechanic. And of course, they're just like, this reset. Like, we just need to reset. And so we reset. Because you can't revive people. Remember, you can't revive anybody. You can't revive anyone. So now we got to go back to the fucking beginning. Here we go again. 3rd time's a charm, right? This is fun. Oh, this is peak content. This is so much fun. I enjoy I can't wait to do this again. Now, I don't know if the player has said it at this point in time. I'm watching, of course, the video while I'm talking about this shit. But, yeah, like, it's ridiculous. Oh, yeah, someone left. Yes, so someone left. Obviously, I'm the party leader, so I need to re-up the party, and 2 people now left. Why did they leave? Well, it's because we didn't do it the first time. Why did they leave? Oh, not only did we not do it the first time, but they were willing to stick it out for the second time, because the first time was actually an honest mistake, and it was a quick wipe. Quick wipes are fine. If we do a quick wipe, most people are going to stick around. But if we are like halfway through the fight or mechanics and stuff like that, and we start dying like you just seen, People are going to leave. No one has time for this. They don't want to fucking sit there and have to wait to do these dungeons. We don't want to keep wiping. We don't want to keep going back and doing this bullshit over and over and over again with a full health boss. It's so demoralizing to do these dungeons when not everyone is firing off on all cylinders. It's just so stupid. So here we are doing this for the third time with 2 new people, and we're doing this mechanic. I have to go under the assumption that everybody knows what to do. That is how you have to play these dungeons. You must assume everyone knows what to do. And so we're playing the mechanics. That guy's a dumbass and he's dead. Clearly he doesn't know what to do. This guy somehow got out of there in time. But the first guy didn't know what to do. These other guys seem to know what to do because they were already here before anyways. I do my dodge. I need to make sure as a tank. Now that dash, after he's done doing these pillars, right? That dash always goes towards the tank. So I make sure to separate myself as best as possible from everyone else. And this is also a hint for anybody that plays a tank and watches this and doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Separate yourself after the pillar mechanic. So that way the dash that happens doesn't hit everybody. Or only hits you, and you should be able to dodge it because you have enough distance. That dash mechanic there pisses me off, and it kills more people than just not knowing how to do that pillar stuff, because you are asking players to have cat-like reflexes on that mechanic. It's not easy. It's near impossible, especially when you're a melee player and you have to stand on top of this boss, especially like myself, and do this shit. There's no, like, sympathy here. There's nothing like, who the fuck, see, like, you don't have time. There was no time for that. I have time now, because I'm so far away from him. See, everyone was able to dodge because after the first dash, people have enough room to get the fuck out of the way. But when it comes to the first dash that this guy does, you really don't have time. You have no time. Now, if you're a ranged player, such as spellcaster or, you know, crossbow, bow, whatever, sure, you should have time. But tanks don't have time. We have 0 time to get the fuck out of the way of that dash. So now we're doing the thing. That guy's a dipshit and he dies. I don't understand where, like, the easiest way to get around this obelisk problem, this pillar problem, and this huge AoE that he does, get close to the boss. You should have a dash. You should have a dash slotted, or something slotted to get you out of trouble, and so that way you can get out of that AoE as fast as possible. Because even if you're chained, as you are when you do this dodge. When you are chained, even though you're slow, your dash works 100% of the time. It's not hindered by the chain mechanic on you. So you should be able to get out of that AoE no problem. And as you see, someone's calling for a reset because obviously I died. As the tank, can't happen. I can't die in this. I need to be able to stay alive in this dungeon. Obviously, healer has to continue to live. So now we're doing this again. As I pull the boss, we're just at this point in time, let's just go. Let's just do the damn thing. I'm just assuming that people have just made genuine mistakes, and we're just going to go through this boss. Needless to say, however, there's a couple people here that don't know how to do the mechanics, and we go through this boss. I'm going to save you all time, okay? We go through this boss multiple upon multiple times. And so we're going to get to the final part, to what happens with me after everything is said and done. Well, that was a fun montage. Isn't this peak gaming experience? Isn't this just so much fun? We keep resetting and wiping and resetting and wiping and resetting and wiping, and I'm done. I'm done. I'm absolutely done. I'm not here to explain things for people. I'm not here to hold your hand through the content. Again, I'm part of this toxic player base. I'm done. I shouldn't have to tell you how to do this boss. Because again, if I were to do this and tell people about this boss, it's too much time wasted. Too much time. And so I logged off. I was done. I was over this stuff. I'm over it. I don't want to play anymore. I did my few dungeons. I spent a couple hours in the game. I did some PvP things before these dungeons and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm over it. Absolutely over it. But this is how Throne and Liberty dungeons are. If you're not prepared for this, again, if you're a new player considering Throne and Liberty, travel at your own risk. If you are veterans watching this and you see, like, yeah, that's it. That's what happens. All the fucking time. That's what happens. You either are lucky and you get random players that know what the fuck they're doing, or you get exactly what has transpired today, which is if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get kicked. If other players don't know what they're doing, but you do, they're going to get kicked and possibly reported. If you get a bunch of people that don't know what the hell they're going to do, you're going to leave. You're going to leave. You're just going to leave because you're like, I don't have time for this. I could be doing something else. I don't have time for this. And so I ask you, Throne and Liberty players, gamer community at large, do you think that's fucking fun? No, it's not. These dungeons are the worst dungeons of any MMO I've ever had to play, or had the pleasure/displeasure of playing. Obviously, I still play Throne and Liberty. And it's because I am in that upper echelon of players that know what they're doing. I know how the mechanics work. But I got there through these pains. I've been kicked many times. I have been reported probably many times. I have been under ridicule with assaults via messaging in game from players saying that I'm stupid. How the fuck do I not know what I'm doing? You pleb. go read a damn guide and come back here, but you're not going to be doing it with us because we ain't got time for you to read a guide or watch a videos on these very specific boss mechanics that require absolute attention at all fucking times. And if you make a mistake, you die. And if, of course, certain players die, you wipe. And because this game is set up for failure, for these bosses, for these dungeons, and, don't give the healer a way or capability of reviving players to continue on, or players themselves to have a way of self-reviving. That would be kind of fucking cool. Final Fantasy does that. They got the Phoenix Down feathers. And trudge through this bullshit. Like, it would be 100x more tolerable if there was a revive mechanic. Oh my god, like, it'd practically be like God's holy light just beaming down once Throne and Liberty developers decide to give a revive spell to the healers. And I don't even care if you have to unlock at level 50. Okay, at least we fucking have it. At some point in time, at least we have it. And I don't even care if it's a mass AoE heal or revive. So long as at least somebody can come back, it gives a better chance of success. And best of all, even if the person doesn't learn the mechanic through all their failures, the party is at least able to continue on and finish the damn thing and just have the slight irritation that there was one or maybe even two people that didn't know what they were doing. But guess what? We get to get through this fucking thing. I get my damn gear and I get to move the fuck on. Please, God, Throne and Liberty, fix your fucking dungeons. Give at least a revival spell of some sort, or do something to where these major boss mechanics are not as detrimental, so that way there's a little bit more survivability, a little bit more leeway with making a mistake, so that way people can actually somewhat enjoy your dungeons. And that's why I have concluded that Throne and Liberty has the worst dungeons of all MMOs.